Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
the Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today I've got Jesse LeBeau with me. Jesse is one of today's most highly sought after youth motivational speakers. So having four boys myself, Jesse, I'm excited to have a great conversation today. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Got a nice little Christmas tree back there. It's pretty. It's Christmas time. Tis the season.
Tis the season. Tis the season, man.
Tis the season to be merry. Favorite Christmas movie? Go. What is it?
Oh, a Christmas story.
Okay.
100%.
I like it. You'll shoot
Yeah.
your eye out. Ours is pretty much, I think, overwhelming response from our family of 6 is Christmas Vacation. So we watched that. We've already watched that this year. It's a good one. It's a real good one. So for those listening, you let us know what your favorite Christmas movie is. And but yeah, anyway, you are like I said, man, you're a sought after motivational speaker. You are an author, motivator. Obviously, your unlikely underdog story has inspired millions of teens through your speaking and best-selling books, man. So excited to start diving into that stuff with you. But before we do, Jesse, if you can, kind of give us a lay of the land of what's made you the man you are today.
Yeah, I think adversity. I think adversity is the best thing that shapes and molds us. And just like anyone, I have an underdog story. I don't think I've met a person in life that doesn't consider themselves an underdog. It doesn't mean they necessarily came from an impoverished family. Some of them come from very affluent families. But they'll find something, whether it's a speech impediment or just anything. And they feel like, they don't fit in, they don't belong, they have a hard time. And I think that's really what made me who I am today. And I'm very thankful that I had some pretty awesome parents who were very flawed in their own right and came from a different generation, but they kept showing up and encouraged me to chase the things that I was excited about. Yeah. And I think that kind of put me in the position that I am in today.
I like it. So I know you're pretty vulnerable and transparent about this, but you talked about, a kid that was looked down on most of your life, and that's kind of your underdog story. And so why don't you kind of share and set the stage for what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah. So we'll go on a Christmas story here. We'll try to make it come full circle if we can. But I grew up on a little island in Alaska. And on this little island, there was no roads, there was no stores, there was no cars. It was just our little house surrounded by the woods and some wild animals. And each day to get to school, or my parents to get to work, which for my mom was at the school, she was a school teacher, we had to take a boat across the town. We would take this little boat. It was called a skiff, and then we'd go to town, and that was the big city, and that had one road going each way, 4 stoplights and 15 miles of road, and then a fence on either end, and you were trapped there. So there wasn't a lot to do. It was dark. It was cold. You go to school, it'd be dark. You get out of school, it'd be dark. So for a lot of those reasons, there was a lot of problems with drugs and alcohol and depression and all the things that you can imagine in small town USA. Yeah. So my kind of saving grace was that I got really into sports. I looked up to my older brother. He was a great basketball player. And in our little town, practically the whole town would come out. So there'd be 3,000 people at the games, and he'd hit some 3-pointers and everyone would, go crazy. And I'm like, I want to be like my big brother, Luke. The problem was he was a little bigger than me, and I was the smallest kid by far, smaller than the girls. And so having this dream, to be a basketball player, there was a lot of people that were very vocal in letting me know that I had no shot. I wasn't big enough, wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough, didn't have the skills to ever make it as a basketball player. And, went through the bullying thing and had some different scenarios. But again, to your first point, adversity. And I realized in the 7th grade with this one particular incident where I got bullied that I could listen to him and have my life be, hey, I'm just going to give up. I'm not going to go for it. I'm going to take what other people say to heart and not go for it. Or I can choose to get better and go for it and create the life that I want to live and chase my own dreams. And, I don't know if it was as deep as I realized at this moment. I just was like, no, I want to do this. I'm going to become the best basketball player that I possibly can become. And from there, my life just became like, I don't know if you ever saw The Pistol, the Pete
No.
Maravich
Oh,
story.
Pistol Pete. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an old movie back in the day, and I remember watching that, and it was him carrying around the basketball, dribbling it on the train tracks, spinning it on his finger, and that became my life, like the Alaska version of that, on the docks, in the snow,
Yeah.
and I was able to take basketball from, from that point in junior high to playing in high school and being a good career, and then college. And then after that, I ended up using it to break into entertainment, and it ultimately led to traveling around the world, being teammates with Allen Iverson, and having my why moment where I was like, okay, I'm supposed to do more than just dribble a basketball. And that's where I kind of found my purpose, where I was like, I want to share my story, write books, and inspire using this underdog story more than just doing basketball tricks and
Yeah.
entertaining people.
That's amazing. So how were you Allen Iverson's teammate?
So I was out on a fishing boat and I got a call and they said, hey, do you want to go play basketball in Indonesia for this team called Ball Up? So I had done some exhibition games with them. I
So
don't
you
know if
guys are
you're,
you're in high school or college at this time?
I graduated college and I'm in entertainment. I'm doing commercials and movies
Okay.
and TV shows. And, but the thing that kind of got me in was I was playing street ball. I was basically for a while the professor's backup. Whenever he couldn't make it to an event, they'd call the other little white French guy and be like, "Hey, can you make it?" And I'm like, "Of course I can make it. This is awesome. I'd love to." And so Professor had something else, I think, at the same time, and me and a group of guys went out there, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, Allen Iverson's going to be your teammate. You think you can make it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I'll
think
be able
so.
to make it for this." So that's how that all came about.
That's amazing. And so then you guys did what? You just kind of traveled around and played basketball against two teams and other teams? Was it a league or what was it?
Yeah, so it wasn't like the Globetrotters that has like the B team. It was us playing against people in those different countries. So,
Got it.
uh,
Okay.
and Iverson wasn't playing that hard.
You're right.
We had other guys, like I was doing tricks and the other guys were doing dunks. He's just the guy everyone's excited about, but he wasn't taking any chances of getting injured. But
That's
yeah, it
amazing.
was an amazing experience for sure.
Yeah. So it's funny. So I was when I got my driver's license, I think I lied on my driver's license and said I was 105 pounds and 5'2". And so now you can't see who I'm sitting here. I'm 6 foot tall. So I went through most of high school being really little, and my friends called me Bones. And so I get it, man. I wanted to be a big basketball player, but that wasn't in my cards either. So I get what
Yeah.
you're going through, and but it's awesome, man. Because I think what's cool, you look around the world, man, and people are, dealt a different deck of cards, right, all the time. And I think it's amazing how some people can take the exact same thing and go places with it, and then some don't, right? And they go another direction with it. So what do you think for you, most importantly, was the reason you took it in the right direction versus the wrong direction?
Yeah, I have to give a lot of credit to my dad. So in sports, he really used them as an illustration and as a tool to learn about life. And what I mean by that is we would go and watch the older kids, whether it was baseball or basketball in our little Ketchikan, Alaska, and we would watch the star player. And the thing that he was most fascinated in passing on to me is what did those guys do when things weren't going their way? So not when they hit the home run or the game-winning shot, but when they struck out, when they made a bad pass, when they didn't get a call. Did they throw their bat? Did they cuss at the umpire? Did they kick the ball into the stands?
Yeah.
What do it in that moment? And those are the moments where you see your attitude, and it shows whether you're going to be a winner or not in the bigger game, which is life. Because we all hit that adversity, we all hit those bumps in the road, but you really see who you are, your character, and what you're made of is what you do when things aren't ideal. Because anyone can have a good attitude and be the man
That's
when
right.
you're hitting the
Things are
home
going
run.
well. Yeah.
But who are you when the chips are down? And so my dad reinforced that to me over and over again, and it's something that carried on to me to this day. Anytime something comes up, it's like, all right, well, this isn't what ideal is like for me, but how can I turn this into a positive thing? What lesson is there to be learned? What have I been through that's more difficult? This to be like, all right, yeah, this isn't that tough. Like I've been through harder things.
Yeah.
So it's a consistent, and definitely failed with the attitude a lot of times, and definitely had to rethink it and have a lot of conversations, and still struggle with it now. But it definitely is a huge, I think, X factor for people. That the great Coach Wooden says, things work out the best for those who make the best out of how things work out. And I just love that. I think that's such a beautiful illustration for life.
Yeah. Yeah. I always talk about this thing I've kind of coined called the bounce back theory. And so I've been, in the professional world for 22, 23 years. And I've just watching, to your point, your dad was watching that star player. As I watch people, the most successful people that I've come across bounce back from defeat quicker than the unsuccessful person, right? So that's what I think is unique, is how fast can we bounce back as humans? So anybody listening to this, right? We all going to get bad news. How do you deal with it? How do you handle it? How do you respond? But how fast do you have the old pity party, right? And so I want to get over that pity party as quickly as possible. Thoughts on that?
100%. Yeah. And I think it's gotten worse in our modern era with social media and phones, where you can get a lot of attention for being someone who's a victim or being someone who's outraged. But and some of those things may be very valid depending on your situation, but I've never seen anything good from sitting around and having a pity party for yourself. Getting that attention for posting things, it doesn't fix the problem. So it's what now? What are you going to do now? And that's something that I really try to impress upon the kids that I go and speak to, is like this whole concept of attitude. Yep, bad things are going to happen. Get ready for it. But what are you going to do next? And that's what's going to determine your level of happiness, your level of success, and whether or not you're going to live a fulfilling life.
Yeah. So let's talk to the parents out there. Lots of parents obviously listening to this podcast. And so what are you seeing as you travel literally the world and spend time with, thousands, if not millions of kids a year? What are you seeing the most right now that concerns you? And maybe we're seeing, at our own homes, potentially some of us. Yeah, I don't know. Right. But what are you seeing that's out there?
Yeah, the three main things that we work on with the kids that are in our programs and when we go to these schools is helping them build confidence, grit, and resilience, and an unshakable positive attitude. So confidence, grit, and resilience, and a positive attitude are the three big things. And if we can connect with kids in those three areas, it can spill over to every other aspect of their life. So whether they're dealing with bad grades, stress, social anxiety, depression, self-harm, dealing with a bully, all these different things. The kids that have more belief in themselves, the kids that have that higher self-esteem, they're less likely to go down the wrong path. They're less likely to be influenced by the other people around them that you probably don't want them hanging out with. Yeah. So building that up so that they don't have to be a follower and they can be a leader is huge. So those are kind of like the core things.
Yeah. So if we can, let's dive into that one more, the confidence, that self-confidence, self-belief, right? Whatever we want to call it. What exercises are you having them go through? So what can we do with our children now to help, foster that, grow that? I do believe there's a very fine line between confidence and arrogance, right? And so how do we do that in a way that's healthy for them to believe in themselves?
Great question. So one thing that I see a lot is so many parents have the best of intentions. Their heart is absolutely 1000% in the right place, but the actions that they're taking are actually hurting their kids more than they're helping them. So for instance, sometimes I'll meet a kid who comes up and has that false confidence that's not based on anything. They've been told they're the prettiest, they're the smartest. And from a 30-second conversation, I can tell this kid's going to have a tough time in life. So it doesn't mean necessarily just going and telling them that they're great. I'm not saying you should go tell them that they suck, but you should be realistic with them. And also, if you tell them that they're great at something and they're not stupid. They're going to realize, okay, I'm not getting honest feedback, so I'm not going to take anything serious when it comes to this. So being honest and straightforward. But the big one, back along that right intention, wrong practice, is letting your kid fail within reason. So right now, your kid goes out for the hockey team, doesn't make the team, he's devastated. This is probably a very painful experience for you if you're the parent and you have compassion in a heart. You don't want to see them hurting, you don't want to see them down, you don't want to see them seeing what's happening with the other players that made the team and feeling left out and all these different things. But going and doing as we would say in the past, like the 7th place trophy thing, rewarding them, blaming the coach, making it everyone's fault except for the kids isn't going to help them. In fact, it's going to reinforce this attitude of like, oh, it's not my fault. I can always blame someone else. And so letting them fail within reason is one of the most important lessons, because in life, all we do is fail over and over again. You were bringing it up earlier with the bounce back, right? The
Yeah.
people that are the most successful that you seem to see are people that handle adversity, that handle failure, and bounce back. Well, I can't get good at becoming a fast bounce backer if I haven't done it before on a smaller scale, because when they get out into the real world, it's going to be a lot higher stakes and a lot harsher than it is in the bubble when they're living in the home, when they're in middle school, and when they're in high school with you. So using those times and those lessons to be able to, oh, I don't like how it feels not to make the hockey team. I don't want to feel this feeling again. So I get a couple options. I can look into a sport that maybe I'm a little bit more naturally gifted at, or I can say, all right, I'm going to work really, really hard, and I'm not going to let this happen again next year.
Yeah.
And so getting used to dealing with adversity and dealing with some of those issues like that make all the difference. So many parents today are doing I'm preparing the road ahead for my child. So I'm running ahead of them and clearing it out, getting rid of the speed bumps, smoothing it out, instead of preparing their kid to be tough and have grit and resilience so they can handle a bumpy road. Because the reality is life is bumpy. And so you need to learn that now.
Right. That's great advice too. It's true, man, because we always talk about that at our house. We want to focus on the effort that they're putting in, not necessarily the end result, but focus on that effort. And hopefully that's building some confidence as well, is because if you want it, man, hey, go get it, but you got to want it, and you got to go get it yourself, because we're not going to do it for you. And the world's not going to do it for you. So I think that's my struggle right now. And kids these days, just in general, it's like they want everything like immediately. There's no delayed gratification whatsoever. And so it's because they've grown up with these, right? They've grown up this thing in their hand that as soon as I want it, boom, I've got it. And now I don't have to work for it. Right.
Yeah.
So do you find, and I just said this on a episode, I think probably it's already, or maybe it'll be out next week or something like that, but I talked about Chat GPT. While I think some of this AI stuff is phenomenal, it also scares the living daylights out of me for our youth, man, because, it's going to be hard to track. Did they do this? Did they not do that paper? Did they think on their own? Did they just type it into an AI thing? So are you seeing that come into play at all with teens right now? And if so, what are your thoughts on it?
A little bit, yeah. And that's one of the things that I was kind of predicting a few years back, of like, one of the most difficult things is going to be for people to be able to navigate the information that I'm getting. Is this information that I should be believing? Is this information that is credible? And that's one thing that kids haven't really picked up on at a younger age, of like, if it says it on the internet, then it must be true. If it says it on social media, then it must be true. If Chat GPT can answer it, then why do I need to learn anything? And like you said, well, they have a point. Adults, we're using Chat GPT for different things in our businesses, in our lives. I haven't seen a big issues being caused by it, but I do see, to your question earlier and into this one, the phone being one of the biggest issues that is just ruining kids, their relationships with their families, their schools, and in a lot of times their lives when it comes to anxiety and stress and depression. How old are your kids?
So they're 18, 16, 13, and 9.
Okay, so they probably all have phones except for the 9-year-old, or maybe even
Correct.
the 9-year-old.
No,
Okay.
no. So our rule at our house, which you kind of make the rule for the oldest kid, and then it just kind of follows, right? So our rule was they get their phone on their 12th birthday, which is still, to me, is crazy, because they go to school and they come home, right? And that's it. But my kids were usually one of the last kids in their class to get their phone, even at 12 years old. And but that's just been our deal. So there's obviously some older iPads and stuff laying around the house that my 9-year-old can get on and play some stuff, but he doesn't have his own big boy phone yet.
Yeah. It's amazing how many kids just have their phone with no type of restriction, no type of guidance. It's just a free for all, and the parents are like, well, they're gonna see it anyways. or,
Yeah.
you know, and like you said, 12-year-old was maybe one of the last ones his age. Everyone else already has ones. And the parents will say, well, you know, everyone else has one. So we don't want our kid to be the weird kid that doesn't have one, which is so interesting to me. And I get it. I get where it's coming from. But you wouldn't use that logic with any other thing. If every other kid was smoking weed, if every other
Right.
kid was vaping, if every other kid was drinking, if every other kid was breaking curfew, you wouldn't be like, well, you know, all the other kids are going
Yeah.
out and doing crystal meth, so I guess we'll just do it.
Guess it's okay, little
I guess
Johnny.
we're just doing crystal meth now.
Yeah.
So it is all the things with the phone, and I preface it with it's easier said than done, right? Because it's a full-time job being a parent. It's so much work, and let alone having, you know, multiple kids. But if you can get some systems in place to protect them against themselves, because I don't think any person on this planet, young or old, has the discipline to stay off there as much as you need to for your own sanity. It's
Yeah.
addictive. As an adult, will get on there and I'll be looking at some sports highlights, and then it's,
Yeah.
you know, going over to Ozzie Smith doing backflips on the infield, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is amazing. But it is. I think it's going to come out in years down the road with a Surgeon General warning, just like cigarettes. Like, use this at your own caution, because it's going to cause mental health issues, and we're
Yeah.
seeing it, you know,
Yeah.
all across the board, the craziness with that.
Yeah. Well, and look, at the end of the day, I trust these, you know, they're really, really smart engineers. They can build this. This thing's more powerful than what sent a man to the moon, right? Even my Apple Watch is more powerful than that. But at the same time, they do put these restrictions on here because they even know it. I mean, if you really, like, you know, the people that have left the Apples and the Googles of the world, like, they worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
And so we use that. And I think for parents, especially parents that their kids are just getting into this stuff, if they're listening, I would set it on there now, right? You got the, I can't remember what it's even called, but the restrictions on your iPhone, I'm sure the Samsung phones have them too, right? That we go in there and there's a passcode. Everything just goes done except for making a phone call if they were needing to do that. You know, set those restrictions, and then you keep the password. And if you want to give them a little extra time, then do it. But they got to come ask for you, or ask you for it. So set that stuff up. But I also think I know how to become the world's first trillionaire. You know what that idea is? I'm going to give away $1 trillion idea.
I'm in.
Ready?
I'm going to write this down. Here we go.
Write it down. I think you could get every person that has a teenage child that if you could raise money from those billions of people that have those kids, they would all give you $2 or $3, I guess, if you could eliminate Fortnite. Sorry, Fortnite, if you're listening to this. But if you could eliminate Fortnite, you'd be a trillionaire because everybody would give you money. So it's terrible.
It is. I'll tell you this. Like, so one of the things I'll do sometimes, I did one the other day, and it was a full gym, you know, high school gym, both sides of kids, and all from different schools. So about 20 to 50 kids from different. So a pretty good cross section of people.
Yeah.
And it was, all right, everyone's got a phone. Hold it up. Cool. Let's go into your settings. I want to hear how much average time you're on that phone on a day thing. And these numbers, I'm not making up, disgusting. 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours in a day. There was one kid that was in the 20 plus hours. And I'm like, are you going to bed and you're leaving it on and it's playing a video or something? And I think that's how his was so high. But you see these kids completely wasting their lives, because our time, you know, is our most valuable thing that we have. And they're wasting all this time watching what other people are pretending to do. And it's like, even if you just took 1 hour or 2 hour a day and you put it towards anything, for me, it was basketball. So learning the game, practicing tricks. I'm so thankful that I didn't have that distraction.
I know.
But if they want to learn another language, they want to start a business, like, they could do anything, literally anything. And that is their biggest competitive advantage, because everyone else is just numbing their brain out on things that don't matter. You know, the newest trend in dance, it's like, oh my gosh, if I was a teen today, like, I would put the same amount of time and energy into my thing, and I would be able to just dominate. Granted, I got a little better genetics, it would help too, but you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's tough
so we
to watch.
talked about the confidence part. So let's talk about the grit, because it's one of my favorite words. And you know, I think it was last year, grit. I used that as my word right of the year, but it was about growth, respect, integrity, and trust. Kind of build an acronym around grit, because you got to have grit, but if you don't have those other things, it just doesn't work, right? So how do we have in the world we live in today, how do we get grit ingrained into these children?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing, and maybe you've talked about this a little bit on some of your other podcasts, but the biggest thing that you can do as a parent is to live it in your own life.
Mm.
There's this poster that I always think of. I went to a Christian school for a couple years in high school, and it said, evangelize the gospel of Jesus Christ everywhere you go, and when necessary, use words.
Oh,
And
I
I
love
think
that one.
that
I've
was
heard that.
I thought it was so powerful because everyone today talks a big game, right? Everyone, especially in the day of social media, everyone's, a gazillionaire and has the perfect body and all these things,
Yeah.
but we see through it. It's getting easier and easier to see
Yep.
through the. So if you can show up and you can be an example to your kids with how you handle difficult situations, how you treat the person that you can get nothing from, the person that's making your coffee or the person that's ringing you up at the store, the kids are watching that. And that's
Yep.
the most powerful influence you can have them, because even when you don't think they're watching, they are watching.
They're
And
watching.
so they're going to pattern that and they're going to mirror that. So you have to live that in your own life. How are you reacting when things are going great? And also, how are you responding and how are you handling situations when things are tough? When you don't know how you're going to pay the rent, when things aren't going your way, when the car breaks down, when the traffic gets in the way and people are flipping you off, what do you do in those situations? Because your kids are 1000% watching, and they are going to become little versions of you, for better or for worse. So
Yep.
it starts with you.
Yep. So is there any other common themes that you're seeing out there among teens that one is a sign that people should be looking for, or just something that we can, again, help in our own homes? What are some of those themes that you're seeing throughout the world?
Yeah, I think a big one that I was talking with someone earlier today about is, in today's world with the internet, with chat GPT and all these things we're talking about, it's so easy to self-diagnose. So
Yeah.
like right now I got a hurt shoulder. I've been looking up online. Did I
Yeah.
tear my rotator cuff? Like, what's going on here? Do I need to get an
Or you
MRI?
look it up and you're dead. I'll be dead in 2 weeks. It's like,
Oh, I got 2 weeks tops here with
right,
this shoulder.
exactly.
And so it freaks us out, right? And
Yep.
so kids do the same thing and they put a label on themselves. So I'm just a shy kid, or I have social anxiety, or, I have this ailment. And then it becomes a crutch. And then they go from someone who can help other people to someone who needs help. So
Yep.
that's one of the biggest shifts that I'm always trying to get kids to make when they show up and they have this thing like, I have this. It's like, do you? Or is that just something that you're saying that's a crutch? And yeah, everyone gets a little nervous when they get around other people. Like, that's pretty normal. In fact,
Yep.
public speaking is the number one fear in all of humanity,
Yep.
is going and talking in front of people. So that's normal. If you didn't feel that, it would be weird. Like, we all feel weird during the teenage years, and our bodies changing and we don't like the way we look. Like, that's just part of being a human. And that's something we kind of laugh about, because these parents will come to us and they'll be like, I can't get them to go to school. They're so crippled with anxiety. And they kind of are giving their kids the option to do these things. Now, you got to be sensitive. You have to take each case by itself. But at a certain point, it's like, you and me every day do things that we don't want to do. I don't want to get up at a certain time. I don't want to work out and move my body and be in pain. I don't want to eat healthy all the time. I don't want to go do this and that. But that's part of life. That's part of being an adult. And
That's right.
so, again, preparing the kids for a road ahead and helping them get those small wins so that they build that confidence, because we can't give them confidence through pep talks and encouraging them. They have to actually achieve things.
That's
They
right.
have to get out there and make the team. They have to get out there and get a B on the test. And now it's like, oh, okay, that studying that I did, that preparation
Thing
for
actually worked.
that actually work. What would happen if I continue to do this at a higher level?
Yeah.
So that's really one of the big keys. But yeah, I see a lot of self-labeling, and if we can get away from, hey, I'm someone who needs help, to, hey, I'm someone who can help others, it will completely change their life.
Yep. One of the things, I'm going to pull up a sheet here in a second, and
Yeah.
is that people also talk about they don't have time, right? Like I'm a big believer in reading, and whether it's, I try, my kids don't want to read as much as I would want them to read, right? But because they're kids, I didn't either when I was a kid. But there's so much power in reading, and I talk about even to adults, read 10 pages a day, right? If you read just 10 pages a day, you'll end up reading like 24 to 25 books. And so, but everybody's always, I don't have time for this, or I don't have time for that. And so I'm going to pull this up here. Hopefully it shows up. Does that show up? Can you see that?
Not yet, not yet.
Okay. I didn't know if
Nope,
there was
no.
something that, okay, now you got it. Okay, so I put it over me so you can we can see your face and not mine. I got a face for radio, as my friends say. So statistical weekly graph. This is managing ourselves versus managing our time. So I'm reading this out loud to you that are listening and not watching. You can check it out on the YouTube station that we've got, and that video is on there. But if you look at it, is we have, what's that say, 10,080 minutes in a week, right? So for you, Jesse, it's like, oh, I don't have time to do that. Well, strategic think time. I'm a big believer of 90 minutes a week of just thinking, writing it down in your journal. Is that anything that you do in your time?
Yeah, I do not physically writing, but a meditation in the morning where that's
Yep.
where a lot of my creativity and a lot of my thoughts. Yeah.
Got it. And so then the reading, here's 10 pages. So my point to all this is what I want to get to is I got strategic think time on here. I've got reading on here. We've got exercise on here. Focus 90, which I believe the first 90 minutes of every single day, you need to be doing the things that you can do that is going to move the needle on whatever those goals are in your life. Again, people will say, I don't have time. You don't understand. I got to do this. I got to do that. Okay, that's fine. You got to work, go to work. We got to sleep, right? And then the rest of the week, if you really look at it, the time allotted to all these things, exercise, reading, focusing, work, sleep, the things that we need to go do, we still have 40% of our week that we're not using. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear that I ain't got time for this thing. Right. That's the thing that frustrates me so much with people. So when you see that played out like that, thoughts, questions, feedback that you have for that?
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Like I said earlier, a kid's time and an adult too is your biggest competitive advantage if you want to become great at something because everyone else is so distracted by all the things trying to grab their attention. Whether you're an adult and it's politics and what's going on in the world stage, like, yep, it's good to know what those things are, but you probably could do a little bit less on that. TV, entertainment, escapism is great, but when your whole life becomes an escape, what kind of life are you even living? So the time thing, and to piggyback off of what you said, this is one I love for parents. What if before they got to use their electronics for the entertainment, for the fun stuff, they had to read those 10 pages each day? I know some parents that do 20 pages before their kids get to use the electronics, and they have some of the most exceptional kids that I have ever been around. By the way they talk, look you in your eye, can like they're little adults, and I think there a lot of that can be attributed to their reading before they're just mindlessly spending time on their phone.
Yep. I don't disagree, man. We talk about that with our kids. Like, oh, you want your phone? Yeah, that's great. You can do that, but get your homework done first, right? There's got to be a little carrot out there for them. So, any other thoughts that you can share with it? That's kind of like for you, the questions I wouldn't know even to ask you, but the 1 or 2, 3 things that you think you should give advice to parents that are listening to this right now.
Yeah, I think the big one earlier is it starts with you, right? And we have so many parents that come to us in our teen program. And one of the big things, I spent 2 years having about 10 to 15 calls a day with moms whose kids needed some help and were going through difficult things. So they ended up being really emotional phone calls, a lot of times led to tears. And so one of the biggest things I just want to put out a little beacon of hope out there is if you're listening to this podcast, if this is something that you're spending time thinking about and caring about and trying to improve your relationship with your kids or the outcome of your child's life, give yourself some grace, because I would just see these moms beat themselves up and blame themselves. And it's a difficult thing. And even if you do everything right by the book, which there is no everything right by the book because it varies so much from the what's happening in today's world versus 20 years ago versus how each kid's temperament and will respond. But give yourself that bit of grace and know that you're doing the best that you can, and don't put it all on your shoulders, because that won't help the situation either. So some of these situations, are heartbreaking and devastating. Other ones are just kind of mild frustrations, like we've kind of talked about, like, I wish they would use their time a little bit better. But definitely get some systems in place for the phone if you don't. right? Get it so you have those timers on there, and have a contract with your kid. This is what you are going to be able to do, and this is what you aren't going to be able to do. And if you don't, here's going to be the punishment and the result of it. And get them talking with open communication. So what is it you like about social media? What are the good things about it? What are the things that you don't like? Do you feel better or worse after you spend an hour on there looking at those things? And you'll be surprised from having so many of these conversations. A lot of times they're right there with you of like, yeah, I don't really see it as positive. I'm comparing myself to other kids. I feel left out. I feel like I don't measure up. And they'll be like able to take those steps, because again, if you just take it away from them and you just go, hey, you can't have this thing, that's you smoothing out the road in front of them. And then once they're 18 and they're on their own, then they won't have the skills to be able to manage it themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge one.
It's great advice. How about TikTok? Got any advice on TikTok?
I mean,
delete
I would
it.
say Snapchat. I talked to this.
Snapchat, yeah, as I call it,
yeah,
Snapbook, to drive my kids nuts.
Yeah. I talked to this psychologist, pretty well-known lady the other day, and she goes, Snapchat is the devil. Don't have them on there. There's no reason for them to have something where it disappears. That's where they're going after the drugs, the secret things. It all disappears. TikTok, I think there can be a lot of fun stuff on there. But again, just a waste of time. So just get some type of limits on there and be checking on it and making sure they're not getting influenced by all the bad stuff that's out there. Because just like anything, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad, and it just depends how you use it.
That's right. All right, my man Jesse, where do our listeners find more of you?
Yeah, if they want to check out our podcast, or we have a Facebook group community for parents that's really awesome, they can go to theattitudeadvantage.com/welcome.
Awesome. We will put that in the show notes below here, man. Jesse, it's been awesome having you on the Circuit of Success. Really
Awesome.
appreciate your time.
Yeah. Great chatting with you.